If there's one thing episode 8 of the Testaments proves, it's that Gilead doesn't just control women through violence. It controls them by convincing them their suffering is sacred. And that's what makes the ending of Broken so disturbing. Because for the first time this season, Agnes stops acting like someone trying to survive Gilead and starts becoming someone who might eventually destroy it. This episode isn't packed with explosions or shocking deaths. Instead, it's something far more dangerous for Gilead, girls quietly realizing they are not alone. And by the end of the episode, that realization changes everything. The biggest moment, of course, is Agnes's forced engagement to Commander Weston. On paper, this is supposed to be a great honor. Weston is powerful, feared, and deeply connected to the Eyes, Gilead's terrifying surveillance network. To the outside world, Agnes is blessed. But the show makes it painfully obvious that this engagement is really a prison sentence. The smashed plate ceremony might be one of the darkest rituals the franchise has ever shown. Agnes is forced to rebuild broken ceramic pieces as older women watch approvingly, treating the act like some beautiful tradition. But the symbolism is horrifying once you really think about it. Gilead is openly telling these girls what marriage is. You will be shattered and remade into something useful. That's the point. And what makes the scene even more heartbreaking is Agnes already knows what real love could have looked like. Her feelings for Garth have been quietly building for episodes now. He represented one of the few relationships in her life that felt genuine and human instead of political. But Gilead doesn't allow women to choose love. Love creates independence. Independence creates rebellion. So instead, Garth is being pushed toward Becca, while Agnes is handed to a powerful commander-like property being transferred between owners. The emotional devastation on Agnes's face during those scenes is important because the show is finally peeling away the illusion she still carried about Gilead. Earlier in the season, Agnes still tried to believe obedience could protect her. Episode 8 destroys that belief completely. And then there's Commander Weston himself. The series is being very careful with how it portrays him, and that's intentional. He isn't cartoonishly evil. He's calm, composed, even polite at times. But that's what makes him terrifying. Gilead's real monsters aren't always screaming fanatics. Sometimes they're the men who smile gently while participating in systemic abuse. There's also a deeper layer here that longtime fans of The Handmaid's Tale will immediately recognize. Powerful commanders in this universe often view young women as symbols of purity and status, not as human beings. Agnes isn't being chosen because of who she is. She's being absorbed into Weston's image of control. But the episode's most devastating storyline involves Dr. Grove. And honestly, this may be one of the most important scenes the franchise has ever done, because the horror isn't just the assault itself, it's the reaction afterward. When Hulda confesses what happened during the dentist appointment, the show exposes one of Gilead's ugliest truths. The system protects powerful men first, always. Aunt Vidala immediately shifts the blame onto the girls, essentially warning them that speaking out would create more danger than silence. That scene is incredibly important because it reveals how Gilead maintains control over women psychologically. Fear alone isn't enough. The regime also forces victims to police themselves. Stay quiet, protect the system, endure. That's the unspoken rule. And what's especially tragic is that Agnes realizes she experienced the exact same abuse. The trauma suddenly stops being isolated memories and becomes a pattern. Dr. Grove has likely been doing this for years under the protection of Gilead's hierarchy, which raises a chilling question. How many other girls has this happened to? The episode never answers that directly, but the silence in those scenes says everything. Now here's where the episode becomes fascinating. Agnes decides to go to Aunt Lydia. At first, this feels almost frustrating because viewers know Lydia has historically been one of Gilead's architects. But the Testaments continues doing something really interesting with her character. Unlike many loyalists, Lydia understands the system from the inside. She knows how corrupt these men truly are. Her response to Agnes is carefully calculated. She doesn't promise justice. She promises timing. Lydia tells Agnes that once she's married and gains influence, she'll have more power to act against Dr. Grove. On the surface, it sounds manipulative, and maybe it is. But there's another interpretation here that fans are heavily debating. Aunt Lydia may already be planning something much bigger. Book readers especially know Lydia is one of the most strategically dangerous people in Gilead. She survives by appearing loyal while quietly gathering information and leverage. Episode 8 subtly hints that Lydia understands the regime is rotting from within. And Dr. Grove could become the perfect target, because corrupt men like him expose the hypocrisy Gilead depends on. Now let's talk about Daisy, because her storyline may secretly be the most important part of the episode. Daisy getting her period changes everything. In Gilead's eyes, it means she's officially eligible for marriage and childbirth. But unlike most girls around her, Daisy has a hidden identity and connections to Mayday. She isn't supposed to become trapped inside the system permanently. So suddenly, the clock is ticking. What makes the bathroom scene with Shunammite so powerful is how unexpectedly human it feels. Earlier in the season, Shunammite often came across as arrogant and fully indoctrinated. But this moment reveals that even girls raised inside Gilead still crave trust and emotional connection. The secrecy between them becomes a tiny act of rebellion. And throughout this episode, that idea keeps repeating. Resistance in Gilead rarely begins with violence. It begins with women protecting each other. That's exactly how the original Handmaids survived. Whispered conversations, shared secrets, quiet acts of mercy. Episode 8 mirrors that beautifully. By the ending, when Agnes finally tells Daisy about Dr. Grove, something major shifts emotionally between them. Agnes isn't just confessing trauma, she's choosing who she trusts. And Daisy's reaction matters. She doesn't respond like someone trained by Gilead. She responds with anger, empathy, and protectiveness. The narration heavily suggests Daisy could eventually become the force that delivers justice where Gilead refuses to. That final implication is huge, because the show is quietly transforming Daisy from an outsider into a weapon against the regime. And if you pay close attention, Episode 8 is really about broken systems creating unexpected alliances. Agnes is broken emotionally. Daisy is trapped biologically. Huldah is silenced politically. Even Lydia seems trapped strategically. But when all these fractures start connecting, Gilead becomes vulnerable. That's why the episode is called Broken. Not because the girls are weak, because the system itself is beginning to crack. And with only 2 episodes left, the biggest question isn't whether Gilead is cruel anymore. We already know that. The real question is who finally decides they've suffered enough. Will Aunt Lydia weaponize her influence against the commanders? Will Daisy use her Mayday connections to expose Dr. Grove? Or will Agnes herself become far more dangerous than anyone expected? One thing is certain after this ending. The girls Gilead tried to break are starting to see each other clearly. And that's exactly how revolutions begin.